Alex Eala sat down for her pre-tournament press conference at the Cincinnati Open on August 14, answered every question with the composure of someone twice her age, thanked the media, and then recorded a short video message for the tournament's social channels that would end up collecting more views than any other player's content at the entire event. What happened next made Cincinnati officials scramble in a way they had not anticipated from a 21-year-old making her debut at their freshly renovated $260 million facility. The tournament placed her opening match on a side court, and within hours, they understood exactly how badly they had miscalculated. Before we get into everything that unfolded, if you are one of the 90% of viewers who watch our content without subscribing, now is the time to change that. Hit that subscribe button and the like button too. It takes 1 second, and it helps us bring you stories like this one every single week. So, here's what you need to understand about Open's problem. Tournament scheduling at a WTA 1000 event is a logistical puzzle involving 72 of the top 75 players on tour, broadcast windows, rest periods, court availability, and seeding hierarchy. Under normal conditions, a 17th seed does not get center court for a second-round match. That is just how it works. Higher seeds, bigger names, and broadcast priority typically determine where matches land. And by every conventional metric, placing Alex Eala on one of the facility's outer courts for her Cincinnati debut against Elena Gabriela Ruse was a perfectly defensible decision. Except conventional metrics have stopped applying to Alex Eala. This is a pattern that tournament organizers around the world keep failing to anticipate. At the Australian Open in January, Eala was to court 6 for her first-round match. The queue to get into that court stretched so far that fans who arrived mid-morning had no realistic chance of finding a seat. People who had flown 12 hours from Sydney were turned away. The AO subreddit lit up with posts from frustrated attendees, and multiple commentators pointed out that Eala should have been on one of the bigger show courts. In Toronto at the Canadian Open just 2 weeks ago, tournament director Carl Hale initially debated where to slot her first-round match against Alicia Parks. The smart move, which Hale eventually made, was putting her on center court for the Wednesday night session. Tickets for that session sold out in 30 minutes. Volunteers who had been gifted complimentary passes for Wednesday night were asked to swap to different sessions because there simply were not enough seats. A sold-out Wednesday night that early in a WTA 1000 tournament is, as Hale himself said in his press conference, really unheard of. Cincinnati apparently did not get that memo. Or rather, Cincinnati got the memo and underestimated its contents. The math tells part of the story. Toronto has roughly 270,000 residents of Filipino descent, the largest Filipino diaspora community in Canada. Cincinnati, by contrast, has fewer than 2,000. So, on paper, the crowd calculus was different. The logic probably went something like this. Smaller local Filipino population means smaller turnout means outer court is fine. The problem with that logic is that it fails to account for what Eala has become in the summer of 2026. She is not just drawing the local diaspora anymore. She is drawing tennis fans who are driving hours across state lines. She is drawing casual sports fans who have been pulled into the orbit of Eala mania through viral clips on social media. She is drawing people who had never purchased a tennis ticket before in their lives and decided that this was the event worth attending. This is not a local phenomenon. It is a continental one. The Ruse match itself became a small spectacle beyond the scoreline. Eala came out firing. She won the first set 6-1, breaking Ruse's serve repeatedly and dictating play with her left-handed forehand, pussing the Romanian behind the baseline with angles that gave her no time to set up. By the time Eala was up a double break at 3-love in the second set, the match was effectively over as a competitive contest. And then it got strange. Ruse, trailing badly and clearly struggling physically, called for a racket inspection on Eala's frame. The chair umpire complied as they are required to do under WTA rules when a player makes such a request. The inspection came back clean as expected, but the crowd reacted loudly. It was an unusual moment, one of those incidents that lands differently depending on your perspective. From Ruse's vantage point, she was exercising a right available to any player under the rules. From the perspective of the predominantly pro-Eala crowd, it felt like an attempt to disrupt rhythm in a match that was already slipping away. the inspection found nothing irregular and Eala resumed serving without any visible change in demeanor. Then nature intervened. Lightning was spotted in the area around the Lindner Family Tennis Center, and officials suspended play with Eala leading 6-1, 3-love. The announcement came that matches would resume no earlier than 1:30 in the afternoon. Ruse, who had already called for a medical timeout to have her right ankle taped during the second set, withdrew before play could restart. Eala advanced with a retirement victory. The result squared the head-to-head between these two players at 1 apiece. Their first meeting had come in the final qualifying round of the 2024 U.S. Open, where Ruse rallied from a set down to beat Eala 3-6, 6-1, 6-3. That loss denied Eala what would have been her first Grand Slam main draw appearance. Nearly 2 years later, at the same stage of the North American hard court season, the gulf between them had become unmistakable. Eala entered Cincinnati as a world number 20, a WTA 500 champion, a Wimbledon fourth-rounder, and the 17th seed. Ruse entered ranked outside the top 70. The scoreline merely confirmed what the rankings already stated. But here is where the story turns from a routine win into something the Cincinnati Open will be thinking about for a while. After Eala's dominant performance against Ruse, the tournament released its Monday schedule. Alex Eala versus Amanda Anisimova, the world number 10 and 9th seed, was slotted for PNG Center Court. Not a side court. Not an outer court. Center Court, the biggest stage the Cincinnati Open has. The reversal speaks volumes. In the span of one match and one weekend, Cincinnati officials watched enough ticket demand data, enough social media engagement, and enough on-the-ground crowd response to completely change their approach. Reports indicate that roughly 3,100 tickets were sold for the session featuring the Eala and Anisimova match after the Friday night schedule was released. For a Monday round of 32 contests, those are not normal numbers. And the Cincinnati Open, which just completed a $260 million renovation, specifically to attract bigger events and bigger audiences, found itself in the position of discovering that its most in-demand attraction was not the player with the highest ranking or the most Grand Slam titles. It was Alex Eala. Tournament director Bob Moran had anticipated a successful event coming off the facility upgrade. What he did not anticipate, based on the initial court assignments, was the sheer gravitational force that Eala carries with her from city to city. It is the same miscalculation that the Australian Open made in January, the same one that Toronto almost made before correcting course, and the same one that Cincinnati made and had to fix on the fly. Now, here is what makes this so fascinating from a tennis operations perspective. The traditional model for court assignments is straightforward. You prioritize by seed, by broadcast obligation, and by historical stature. A player who is appearing at your tournament for the first time, seeded 17th, does not typically jump the queue to your biggest stadium. But that model was built for an era when fan interest tracked neatly with ranking and reputation. What Eala has introduced into the WTA ecosystem is a variable that no scheduling algorithm accounts for: cultural mobilization at a scale that dwarfs what rankings predict. Coco Gauff acknowledged it during the Toronto event. "It's so great for the sport and great for all the players," she said. "It's great that one player can bridge the gap between a sport and a nation that hadn't had that representation before." Venus Williams, who partnered with Eala in doubles at both Bad Homburg and Toronto, was even more direct. "Alex is a world star," the 46-year-old legend said. "She's just incredible. Besides the fact of her tennis, she's an incredible person, well-spoken, and just an impressive young lady." What Gauff and Williams are identifying is something the tournament directors are being forced to confront in real time. Eala is not just a tennis player who happens to be popular. She is a cultural event. And cultural events need center court. The Anisimova match represents a genuine step up in opposition. Anisimova is a two-time Grand Slam finalist with some of the cleanest balls striking on tour, particularly off her two-handed backhand. She enters the match having dispatched Turkey's Zeynep Sönmez 6-2, 6-3 in comfortable fashion. Even Anisimova seemed to recognize what was coming when she addressed the matchup after her win. "She's been having such an incredible season, incredible year," the American said of Eala. Very great player with a lot of fans. I'm really looking forward to that. I know that it's probably going to be a very packed stadium. She is right about the packed stadium part. And she is right to acknowledge the challenge. Eala arrives at this matchup with a 9-4 record against top 10 opponents in 2026. A number that is remarkable for a player who started the year ranked outside the top 30. She beat world number 3 Jessica Pegula in the Washington final. She beat defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek at the All England Club. She has demonstrated repeatedly that prominent names across the net do not change her approach. Her compact stroke mechanics, her court coverage, and what coaches on tour have started calling her competitive poise allow her to redirect pace rather than try to match it, turning opponents' power into weapons against them. But there is a real tactical question embedded in this matchup. Anisimova generates her own pace from the back of the court. Unlike many of the opponents Eala has beaten by absorbing and redirecting, Anisimova does not rely on opponents giving her pace to work with. She creates it from scratch with a deep take-back on both sides and a willingness to step into the court and take balls on the rise. If Eala's return game can disrupt Anisimova's rhythm early as it has against so many others this summer, the match tilts in her direction. If Anisimova can hold serve comfortably through the opening games and deny Iga early momentum, the dynamic shifts. There is also the fatigue factor that cannot be ignored. Iga has played 56 matches in 2026, compiling a 38-18 record. She is the most active player on the WTA Tour this year. She won Washington, reached the 4th round in Toronto, and is now competing in Cincinnati. That is 3 consecutive weeks of high-level competition with no break between events. The body keeps a ledger and the entries are accumulating. Tennis 365's Liam McMillan has already flagged the concern, noting that Iga has also committed to playing a Stars of the Open exhibition match and the U.S. Mixed Doubles Championship with Felix Auger-Aliassime before the U.S. Open main draw begins on August 30. If she makes a deep run in Cincinnati, she will have played what amounts to 8 consecutive weeks of competitive tennis by the time the second week of the U.S. Open arrives. Iga herself addressed this dynamic in her pre-tournament press conference with a maturity that belied her 21 years. When asked about momentum, she gave an answer that every coach on tour would endorse. "Momentum is a thing, I guess," she said, "but it's not concrete and it doesn't give you any 100% answers, right? So, momentum can help. A lot of matches can help with your confidence. But it doesn't guarantee anything." When asked what would constitute a successful Cincinnati debut, she kept it process-oriented. "I think it's just the level that I play. And of course, the more matches, the merrier, right? But it's the matches of substance and it's the ones that did I execute what I want to execute? Did I bring the level that I wanted to bring? So, if I lose first round, but it's a really good match, not to say that it's a successful week, but it wasn't a bad one, and if I reach the final, then I'll take that too." That answer tells you something about where Iga's head is right now. She is not chasing results. She is chasing quality. She measures her weeks by the standard of her own execution, not by the round she reaches. That is an uncommon level of self-awareness for a 21-year-old in the middle of the most high-profile stretch of her career, and it helps explain why the noise around her, the court assignment debates, the ticket frenzies, the racket inspections, the weather delays, none of it seems to land on her shoulders. She processes it, acknowledges it, and then returns to the work. After the Ruse match, the Cincinnati Open's official Instagram account posted a video of Iga delivering a short message to fans. "Hi, everyone," she said. "I just want to thank you all so much for making my debut here in Cincinnati so special, and I hope to see you guys in the next round." Simple. Warm. Genuine. No theatrics. The video accumulated engagement numbers that outpaced anything else the tournament posted that weekend. And this is what Cincinnati officials now understand. The phenomenon is real. It is growing, and it is not going away. The Washington title was not a fluke. The Toronto sellout was not a one-off. The Wimbledon run was not a surface-specific aberration. Every tournament on the calendar that Iga enters now needs to plan for her the way they plan for the very top of the draw, not because her ranking demands it yet, but because the commercial and atmospheric reality of her presence requires it. The sports scheduling infrastructure was built for a world in which the top seed draws the biggest crowd. In 2026, in North America at least, the 17th seed is outdrawing everyone. If you really love Alex Eala, then comment now Eala 100%. That is the lesson Cincinnati learned in a single weekend, and it is one that the US Open, 2 weeks from now, will have to take even more seriously. Arthur Ashe Stadium seats 23,771 people. When Alex Eala walks out for her opening match, the question will not be whether the stadium is full. The question will be whether the stadium is big enough. The Anisimova match is set for Monday at PNG Center Court. The court assignment itself is the admission. Cincinnati got it wrong on Friday, and by Monday, they got it right. The regret was immediate. The correction was public. And the 21-year-old from Manila who caused all of it will walk onto that court carrying a racket, a game plan, and the completely indifferent calm of someone who has stopped being surprised by any of this.